Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 7th of June, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So before we go over the news from the weekend, I just wanted to quickly give a shout out to Eth Global here, who are running the the next Hack Money hackathon here, which is going to be taking place, I think, in July or something. I've forgotten the date here, but only 2.5 weeks away. So the deadline to apply is Monday, June 14th. So if you're a developer and you want to apply to this kind of hackathon here and you want to apply to build, it's a 30-day online hackathon. Runs from June 18th to July 9th. And you can go in the running to win up to $100,000 worth of prizes here. Or 150,000 plus now, thanks to all of these great sponsors. You know, Uniswap Grants Program, Compound, Aave. Wow, it's like the who's who is on here, which is really, really cool to see. Basically, if you're a dev, definitely go check that out. These Eth Global events are always really fun. I've judged a few of them before. They're really good, and a lot of a lot of the top projects have come out of these events. So yeah, definitely go check this out. So really big news from Uniswap over the weekend. They finished deploying to Arbitrum. So as you guys will know, Arbitrum's mainnet is only available to developers right now, not available to the general public, so you can't use this just yet. But everything has been updated. So as soon as Arbitrum opens to the general public, you will be able to use Uniswap v3 on it, which is honestly pretty amazing. I think that the speed at which Uniswap went from I guess like everyone thinking they were just going to deploy to Optimism only to deploying on Arbitrum, before they even deployed on Optimism in a public way is insane. And I'm really looking forward to Arbitrum hopefully launching in the next couple weeks to the general public, because even though gas is low right now, like hovering between 10 and 20 Gwei over the weekend, that's still not low enough. If you actually look at the transaction costs, they're still quite high. I mean, it's still, even approving a token is costing like $2. That's still too high for the everyday user. Like, I saw some people saying, oh, we don't need layer 2 anymore. It's like, well, yeah, we do. Like, unless layer 1 transaction fees went down to like sub 1 cent, I would still say that we need layer 2, because at the end of the day, there's going to be tons and tons of transactions happening from many, many different people from around the world, and there's no way we're going to be able to reach most of the world if we don't bring these transaction costs down considerably, right? Like, not everyone's going to be a degen that's just basically flipping things on Uniswap, and they made a lot of money on ETH, so they don't care that the gas fees are high. Most of the users coming in, or pretty much like all of them, like 99.99% of the world doesn't even know like about Ethereum or hasn't even used DeFi or Ethereum. So all of those people coming in are not going to, be happy paying those fees. So we definitely still need layer 2. And also, like, I think what people kind of like maybe miss, maybe people are joking when they say that we don't need layer 2, but I've seen some people be kind of serious about it. And what people miss is that we didn't really make any fundamental changes to layer 1, right? We upped the gas limit, but that was done like a couple months ago now. And there was a flashbot stuff and, some layer 2 stuff, and obviously like Polygon taking kind of like pressure off Ethereum layer 1. But that was all done a while ago, and gas was still 100 Gwei. I think the sole reason why gas is so cheap at the moment, or at least like most of the reason, say 70-80% of it, is due to the market being quiet. Simple as that. Like, everything is quiet right now. The only thing that's really going up continuously is like the ETH BTC ratio. Everything else is really quiet. Like, DeFi in general is very quiet. Bitcoin looks really bad. Not that really affects Ethereum too much. But just generally, there's just not much speculation going on. And that's what drives a lot of the higher gas fees, is that people are very happy to pay those very high gas fees when they're making more than what they're paying. And that's due to bull market conditions. So while we're in like a downturn here, I'm not going to say we're in a bear market or anything. I don't think we are. But while we're in a downturn, those gas costs are just going to be cheap. Now, in saying that, the flashbot stuff, the gas limit raise and everything has played into that as well. But even that is not enough. That is not enough to make layer 1 Ethereum scalable. The only scaling that is coming to layer 1 Ethereum in, I guess, like the short to medium term it's probably more medium term, is sharding. And then longer term, we have things like stateless Ethereum. And then we have a bunch of other things happening on the client side, where some client devs believe that they can raise the gas limit much higher than what it is now, but it requires some work there. But generally, layer 2 is kind of like the way to go. Layer 1 is going to enhance layer 2 as well. And, layer 1 is never, ever going to scale to meet global needs. It's simply not. Not unless we want to give up all of the decentralization that we enjoy. And I've talked about this a lot in the past, so I won't rehash it here. But that's just a little comment on people saying, we don't need layer 2 anymore. And if you say that as a joke, that's fine. But I think there's a few people out there who actually believe that, which is odd. But anyway, hopefully that kind of clears that up for you guys. But I just can't wait to use Uniswap on a layer 2, simply because the transactions are not only going to be cheaper, but they're going to be faster as well. Like Arbitrum blocks are faster than Ethereum mainnet blocks, I believe, and it'll just be basically instant transactions. I mean, I've used some of the other apps like Loopring and Diversify and DYDX and stuff like that. And they're very, very quick, very cheap. But, Uniswap just hits different, I think, because Uniswap is the OG AMM, the OG kind of automated market maker. I know some people say it's Bancor. I'm not going to get into an argument here. But the OG in that, like, everyone has used Uniswap, essentially, right? Like, everyone's used it. Everyone got their Uni token airdrop. Everyone loves Uniswap. It's like the community darling. So I think from that perspective, Uniswap at layer 2 is the game changer. And I've written about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter before, where I think once people see that Ethereum can scale and they see this via things like really popular apps like Uniswap, it's going to completely change the narrative. And that's why I believe that right now, ETH is still in a bull market. Ethereum is still in a bull market. The rest I don't know about. Like, I particularly, I think Bitcoin is looking very, very bad. I don't think there's any good catalyst for Bitcoin coming up. I generally think that the only catalyst for Bitcoin, in terms of like bullish catalyst, is the ETF, really. And the ETF is probably not going to happen this year. Like, let's be honest, because of what happened during the downturn, where we saw that leverage played such a much bigger role than even kind of like the people who were studying it thought that it did. So the SEC is probably not going to approve an ETF in the US for Bitcoin this year. So what does Ethereum have in terms of catalyst? Well, I mean, it has layer 2 rollout, which is just beginning. And as I said, it is still very relevant. Doesn't matter if gas is cheaper relative to what it was a few weeks ago. It is still definitely relevant. We have 1559 that is still coming in July. I did mention how I expect that to be possibly delayed by 1 to 2 weeks, but the fix for that bug that I mentioned is already out. It's already merged into clients as far as I know. So even that, like 1 to 2 weeks, I don't think is going to make a dent there. We also have the Q2 earnings reports coming for public companies soon, and I do truly believe that we're going to see some of those public companies announce that they bought ETH, and that those Q2 earnings are due at the end of June. And ETH2 stuff happening as well, like the merge, continued DeFi growth. There's just so much happening, and I've talked about this a lot on the Refuel. But just generally, when you look at the state of the market and you look at the state of kind of like the crypto ecosystem in general. On one hand, you have Bitcoin, which in my mind is pretty much like guaranteed to be flipped by Ethereum sooner rather than later, for all the reasons I outlined. The Bitcoin image is really, really bad right now. And not to bash Bitcoin, but it is. Like, if like you all saw what happened at the Bitcoin Miami conference, that was really, really cringe. Like, I'll be honest. I mean, anyone coming into this ecosystem that sees that is going to be like, this is really bad. Like, this is just really toxic and just a really bad look in general. And that's just like playing into the narrative that Bitcoin's toxic, not just on the social level, but like on the environmental level too, because Bitcoin has the ESG headwinds and stuff like that. And I said this to a group of my friends the other day, but basically the way I would simulate, I would kind of like, give my opinion on the current state of crypto and the current state of the market and the current state of Bitcoin and Ethereum is that Bitcoin has headwinds, but Ethereum has tailwinds. The ESG, the toxic community, the fact that there's no major catalyst for Bitcoin coming up, all kind of headwinds. The tailwinds for Ethereum is everything I just outlined, like the 1559 layer 2s, and DeFi growth, all that sort of stuff, and more. So from that perspective, it is no surprise to me at all that the ETH BTC ratio is moving up, and I think it's just going to continue doing that. At this point, I mean, I believe the flippening has been inevitable for a very long time now. I believe that ever since 2017, since I got into Ethereum, it's just taken longer than I thought it would. But generally, I think people are like, well, we want the kind of flippening to happen now. It's definitely something that needs to happen. I think that Bitcoiners got way too complacent over the years. They thought that they couldn't lose, and that's always something that I think is very bad for a community to do, especially for projects that, just because we're big in market cap doesn't mean we're big in kind of like penetration within the rest of the world in terms of like usage. And if you really think about it, at the end of the day, Ethereum's total addressable market is much bigger than Bitcoin. So just kind of like viewing it from that as well. And that brings me to this tweet from Zeus here, who basically said, unpopular opinion, Bitcoin falling from number one would be one of the most bullish things to ever happen to crypto. I actually don't think this is an unpopular opinion anymore. The only set of people this is unpopular with, I believe, are hardcore Bitcoiners. I actually think even the middle of the road Bitcoiners feel like Bitcoin has gotten to a point where it's actually dragging the rest of the crypto ecosystem down. And I truly believe it is. So if we kind of take that at face value here and take what Zeus said here, I do think it would be the most bullish thing. And you notice he didn't say ETH or anything like that. And even though I believe ETH is going to be the one to flip Bitcoin first, it's not like we should just rest on our laurels after that. It's not like the Ethereum community should be like, okay, well, we're number one now. Who cares? We don't have to do anything anymore. No, that's the complete wrong approach. And I don't believe Ethereum is going to fall into that, mind you. I think the Ethereum ecosystem is so diverse and so driven to change the world and so driven to build these amazing products and services that nothing's going to stop us from doing that. But in saying that, there's no guarantee that Ethereum stays number one. Like, ETH could get flipped one day by something else if ETH stops innovating, if ETH ossifies, if the community gets too cocky, and if the community just rests on its laurels. So I don't think it will. And I don't think that there's any chance of that happening, really. I actually think that if you look at these networks, the networks optimize for kind of like the people that they kind of like draw to them. Bitcoin being like a single use case network optimizes for a single kind of use case mindset where that is digital gold or gold bugs or these people who think that, it's just Bitcoin, nothing else matters sort of thing. Whereas Ethereum is very pluralistic. There's a lot you can do on Ethereum. You can do anything on Ethereum. So from that point of view, even if one area of Ethereum slows down, say like the NFT kind of ecosystem right now has slowed down, that doesn't mean that every other kind of ecosystem has, right? Because we have DeFi, we have DAOs, we have layer 2, we have core protocol work, we have all this stuff happening. So just because NFTs are in a quiet kind of like maybe down market, even a potentially a bear market right now, doesn't really mean anything for the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem. And by being kind of like diverse like that, that means there's a diversity of ideas, a diversity of people that we can attract into this ecosystem. And that's why I truly believe that there's zero chance, at least for the foreseeable future, that Ethereum and the Ethereum ecosystem is going to ossify and that Ethereum could be flipped by something else because of that. I think that the golden age for Ethereum really is just beginning. I think the last 7 years of Ethereum's life, or at least like 6 years of mainnet, well, I think 7 years now, 6 to 7 years of mainnet have been like just early runner-up days. I think over the coming years, maybe the next kind of like 5 to 10 years is Ethereum's golden age, where we scale the network, we grow DeFi, to becoming basically a thing that would rival the volumes, the kind of total value locked, the activity of the traditional finance system, and we basically just win at everything that we're trying to win at right today. And it's gonna take longer than people think. That's why I said 5 to 10 years. But I still think that eventually, Ethereum is going to be in everyone's life. Like I was thinking about it today, like, wouldn't it be really awesome if every website had a login with Ethereum option where you could just basically connect like you connect to all the Web3 websites, say Connect Wallet, you're basically logging in with your Ethereum wallet, and that's your identity. Say you would log into Twitter with like your Ethereum kind of like your public Ethereum wallet. That is your login credentials. So stuff like that would be really cool to see. I think that's going to happen as well, and that's how we kind of like really get this stuff mainstream too. So yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. And those are just my general thoughts on the current state of the market, especially Bitcoin versus Ethereum. I just think it's time. I think at this point in crypto's life cycle, Bitcoin is definitely dragging down the rest of the ecosystem. And that's not to say that Bitcoin doesn't have its own use case and its own value prop, but its value prop is 1/1000th of ETH, probably even less than that, 1/10,000th of ETH. It is a small niche thing that's going to appeal to a small niche community. And I believe that Ethereum and programmable money and blockchains in general are going to appeal to billions more people than Bitcoin ever would. So yeah, leaving it at that for now. So I noticed this tweet from Nethermind today, which I thought was really interesting. So actually the parent tweet from Trent here from the other day, he was asking what teams building on Ethereum have interns. And then Nethermind responded and said that all the Gitcoin grants that they received this year, plus a solid match from the Nethermind team, are spent on interns. So they're teaching the future generations of Ethereum core developers, and they have probably more than 20 interns this year. More than 20. Okay, remember the other day I spoke about how Trent Can Epps put out like a call for people to apply to become an Ethereum core developer, and they got over 400 plus applications. I actually spoke to Trent, And he said most of them weren't weren't kind of like qualified or relevant or anything like that. But generally, there was like a really healthy chunk that had applied that actually were qualified. But that's how it always works with these kind of like sales funnels things, where you collect like a lot of kind of people, and then it's like any job really. You collect a lot of people's resumes, and then you filter through the best candidates and stuff like that. But the fact that Nethermind, and for those who don't know, Nethermind is an Ethereum One client, dev team and client. But the fact that they're saying that they had more than 20 interns this year alone is incredibly bullish, because I spoke about last week how Ethereum core development is actually quite difficult. It is not an easy thing to do. It is something that takes a while to get up to speed on, and that's part of the reason why Trent put out this kind of call for more core developers to be part of this apprenticeship program that he and the EF were running. So from that perspective, this is just totally awesome. And it's funny because Nethermind is actually a minority client in that I don't think they make up much of the network at all. I think maybe a few percent. That's not to say that their work isn't incredibly important, and that's not to diminish their achievements. The Nethermind client is actually very good, but it's amazing that they've kind of like had more than 20 interns, and they're actually committed to kind of teaching these people, even though they're not a huge part of, I guess, like the network. And that just speaks to, I think, the role that a lot of people see that they play in this ecosystem, in that, even if you feel like you're a small part of the ecosystem, you can still have a large impact. Like, just using kind of like myself as a quick example here, I think that, like, I started off like basically from zero, and over the years, I think that I had a pretty large impact on the Ethereum community. But and that kind of like speaks to, anyone can have an impact. Like, doesn't matter how small you think you are, you can create content, you can do things like what Nethermind's doing, and you can have like a massive impact on this ecosystem generally. So I think this is just really, really cool. So props to Nethermind for, I guess, like teaching more than 20 people the ropes of core development. It's incredibly important to the future of Ethereum for sure. So I put out this tweet today where I said, bull markets tend to give teams a false sense of security. This is because they believe that their products have achieved product market fit, when in reality, they're just riding on the coattails of a frothy market. Most of the winning projects are built grown during bear markets. So when I think about this and kind of like think about this more deeply, we can take a look at all the projects that kind of exist within the DeFi space. Let's just take the DeFi space as an easy example here. What are the top DeFi projects right now? When did they launch? MakerDAO launched end of the bull market in 2017, technically December 2017, but didn't grow until the bear market, because the bear market came right after 2018, 2019 is what I consider to be the core of the bear market there. Maker grew incredibly during that time. It accounted for over 95% of the value locked in DeFi, not just the ETH locked, but the total value locked, so the USD value as well. So obviously, DAI grew to become a staple, grew to become a default decentralized stablecoin for Ethereum. Uniswap launched early 2018, Uniswap V1, I believe, or 2019. I think it might have been early 2019, but I may be misremembering here. But anyway, bear market again. Aave, bear market product. Compound, bear market product. Do you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, and then now let's look at all the projects that have launched over the last kind of, I guess, 12 months that haven't experienced like a proper bear market, like a proper long-term bear market. There is a graveyard of projects that have launched that had their TVL go up really high and then just like completely go away. And this is simply because they use token incentives to bootstrap the growth. And during a bull market, the token incentives work because the tokens are going up in price. It means the yields are going up in price, which means more people kind of lock up TVL, whether that's being in like a pool 1 or a pool 2. And that might lead to a higher token price because people see the TVL going up and like, oh my God, this is so bullish. Let's buy this token. And then on the way down, it's the exact opposite of everything I just said. So I think a lot of projects are going to be washed out during these down markets. I think that the ones that succeed will go on to succeed very bigly, because they have like a very core community, a very strong community that was built during a bear market. I think the perfect example actually of this is Ethereum. If you think about it, Ethereum, like even though it had a massive bull market in 2017, the network activity was still very low. Even though there was ICOs and stuff like that, the network activity generally was like incredibly low to what it is today. Like Gwei prices were still very cheap. Like even when we had those massive ICOs that were going on, I don't think Gwei ever got to like 100. Maybe it did, but like for like a few hours at most during the bulk of the sale. So when you kind of look at Ethereum itself, Ethereum was born, I really think Ethereum came into itself during 2018, 2019, and everything that was built for Ethereum and on Ethereum came to light during 2020, during the first DeFi summer, and that really kickstarted things. So if we do go into like another long-term kind of like bear market one day, which I don't really think we will for Ethereum, but I do think that these periods of downturns still work to wash out a lot of the basically stuff that was just riding on the coattails of a bull market. I'm not going to name any specific projects here. Like, I'm sure that some of you can think of some of them, but I think that it's just the way these things play out. It's just like a boom and bust cycle a lot of the time, and a lot of DeFi just won't ever recover from it. A lot of the TVL won't ever recover. There's a lot of projects that were doing the same thing, and I think that a lot of projects that were doing the same thing as one of the bigger ones are going to have a very hard time trying to disrupt the bigger ones at the end of the day. So we'll see how this plays out. There's plenty of projects still coming to market. There's plenty of projects that are going to not die, but are going to like lose out. At the end of the day, 90% of businesses fail, and these projects really are businesses in their early stages. They're not decentralized protocols. Even if they have a token and that they call a governance token, they're still not truly decentralized. They still don't have, if they don't have like a truly kind of like massive community that actually cares about stewarding these things, and they haven't been around for a while, then they don't have a kind of decentralized community managing it. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think the market generally is going to be fine over the coming months for Ethereum and DeFi, but I do think that unless we get like a really frothy market again, it's going to be harder for these, I guess, copycat projects to launch, and it's going to wash out a lot of the crappier projects, I think. So speaking of building on Ethereum, Nader here from Edge and Node and Graph Protocol put together this amazing thread, which is basically a crash course of 16 high-quality resources, tutorials, and videos that he would recommend for anyone looking to learn Ethereum full-stack development. Now, if you're a developer, this is the thing for you. It's going to be linked in the YouTube description. I highly, highly recommend going and checking this out. I spoke to a few of my developer friends, and they said that this is a gold mine, and this is something they wish they had when they basically started Ethereum development. It gives you all the resources that you need to start, and then obviously there's a lot of things you can kind of like branch off into. As I mentioned before, the ethereum.org developer section is incredibly good for this. They've got a bunch of resources there as well, but if you're a developer, definitely go check this out. And if you're not a developer and you want to be one, go check it out as well. It'll be linked in the YouTube description for your viewing pleasure. So, Sotheby's here, or Sotheby's, I think it's Sotheby's, maybe? I think it said Sotheby's. I think someone corrected me the other day. But anyway, Michael here from Sotheby's put out a tweet that after 300 years of physical-only exhibits, Sotheby's opens its doors in the Metaverse. So they've got basically, I guess, like a museum in Decentraland here, which I think is pretty cool. I think that the Metaverse, Decentraland, virtual reality, all this sort of stuff is still very early, in its very, very early stages, and it's going to take a while for more and more people to get involved with it. But I think that it's being built right now. The early stages are where the core building happens. And going back to my, I guess, like tweet about how during, bear markets is where the real growth and building happens. I think, as I said before, the NFT market is currently in a bear market. And I think that not everything, but a lot of things being built in the NFT space right now, in the metaverse space and all that sort of stuff, is going to kind of come back eventually. And it's going to be much bigger than what we saw in I guess it was NFT winter, maybe. Like, we had a couple of months of really, really kind of like frothy NFT stuff going on, but I think that the metaverse is the kind of like core of what goes on in the NFT ecosystem, because without like a virtual shared space for people to kind of show off their NFTs or like buy and trade them or kind of like, do stuff with them like utility wise, I don't think that NFTs can reach their next kind of level, the next kind of like potential that they can get to. So that's why I think it's really cool that Sotheby's is, being a pioneer here. They're going to kind of put a stamp of legitimacy on this kind of stuff. I think the metaverse stuff also speaks to a lot of people in the gaming community. So I think it's going to be really big there as more and more gamers get on board, as more and more video games come to light. Obviously, I've been talking about Immutable X before, how they have like a whole layer 2 kind of ecosystem for trading in-game items and trading NFTs in general. That's going to be huge. Gods Unchained is on there. They've got a bunch of partners working on there, like bigger partners and things like that. So I think all of that is really, really cool. But generally, yeah, I think right now it's going to be hard to pick a winner in the metaverse NFT space. But if you do, I think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be like picking DeFi in 2019, like the different kind of tokens out there. But it's still very hard to invest in this space. I think the native tokens for a lot of these projects don't have any value accrual mechanisms yet. But that was the same for DeFi. A lot of DeFi didn't have any value accrual mechanisms, but people believe that they would one day. And I think that generally, if the product is sound and if, I guess, the product makes sense, the token kind of accrual can come later. But yeah, not investment advice, but just something to keep an eye on for sure. So Joe Weisenthal, I think here from Bloomberg, put together this blog post where he basically titled it, "There's a new vision for crypto and it's wildly different from Bitcoin." Now, unfortunately, this blog post is paywalled on Bloomberg here. You have to subscribe or find a non-paywalled link to it. But I did give it a read. I had like a link that I've kind of lost now somewhere. But essentially, it basically spoke about kind of like Bitcoin, DeFi, and Ethereum from a perspective of someone who isn't actually like I would consider like a crypto or DeFi native. Joe's pretty famous within the crypto community generally. I think that he's done like a lot of crypto coverage in the past. I think from what I gather, he struggled to but he struggled to see like the long-term value of something like Bitcoin. But lately he's becoming more kind of like attuned to Ethereum and DeFi and seeing the value there. And that's exactly what he wrote about in this piece. So if you can find a link to this piece that's not paywall, definitely give it a read. The TLDR is basically that he thinks what's happening in the Ethereum and DeFi ecosystems is really interesting, and I think says there's kind of like a lot of value there that isn't kind of like tied to Bitcoin at all, and that's what I was kind of like saying earlier in the show, where I think that Bitcoin is probably in its own little bear market right now because there's just not much happening there, but Ethereum and DeFi are definitely still in bull markets in my mind. I think that there's just so many catalysts coming up for that, but I'm not going to rehash that. But anyway, definitely give it a read if you can find a non-paywalled kind of link to it here. So finally, I wanted to talk about this tweet that I put out, and I also spoke about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter today, so you can go check that out. But the tweet was simply, "Ethereum is freedom." Now, I was made fun of for it by a few people here, like Eric Connor, my good friend Eric here, saying, "How I imagine you coming up with these gems and having a gif of someone rolling their face on the keyboard." But the way I came up with this tweet, it wasn't like a deep thought or anything like that, but I was sitting at my computer and I was just like, when I think about Ethereum, what does it mean to me? And I've been asked this question like a few times, and it means freedom to me. That's like the one sentence pitch, or the kind of like 3-word picture. Ethereum is freedom. Now, why is it freedom? Because I mean, it might be obvious to some of you, but I think a lot of people still don't understand this. Ethereum enables so much kind of like things that people kind of take for granted. Now, let's just take a step back and kind of break down what Ethereum is as a platform. It's a decentralized network that is censorship resistant and permissionless and non-custodial / self-sovereign. It lets anyone build anything they want, right? And the reason why financial applications have taken off with it, I believe, is for a number of reasons. But actually the biggest reason is because of that permissionlessness. Building a financial kind of product in traditional finance is just totally cumbersome. It is not censorship resistant. It is not decentralized. It is not self-sovereign. It requires so much regulatory headaches. I mean, there's so much going on there that's just like a mess. Whereas on Ethereum, you can deploy your contracts to the network. No one can stop you. You can do it from anywhere in the world, any piece of hardware you want, any type of internet connection you want, because from what I know, smart contracts aren't very big in size. And once it's on there, if you've coded it correctly, it can run forever and never, ever be kind of like taken away unless the network got attacked or whatever. An example of this is Uniswap. Uniswap's contracts are completely decentralized. There is no admin key on it. There is no way to alter kind of like the Uniswap core contracts. There is no way to change it. There is no way to censor people's transactions. There is no way to stop people from trading whatever they want to. And of course, a lot of people would get kind of drawn into scams. A lot of scammers on there take advantage of this. But that is the price you pay for a truly decentralized and open system. The flip side is that anyone in the world can now trade any asset they want that's been kind of like tokenized on Ethereum with any other asset out there because of the pool bridging. So as long as there's liquidity, you can trade it. And that's just like the simple example. I think the biggest kind of draw and the thing that I think really kind of encapsulates the freedom of Ethereum is the non-custodial nature of it. No one can tell you what you can do with your assets. You can do everything you want from your MetaMask, your kind of like hardware wallet, your mobile wallet, whatever, as long as it's a truly non-custodial wallet where the private key lives on your device and you're not using a custodial service or a custodial wallet, you can do anything you want with that. You can move your funds anywhere you want. You can do it at any time you want, 24 hours a day. There's no waiting. You don't need to ask permission to don't need to ask anyone for permission or anything like that. It's truly freeing, right? You don't get that in the traditional finance system at all. like at all. And also, Ethereum has its faults, right? It's unscale. It's got very limited scalability. It's expensive to transact on, but Ethereum's uptime is 100%. Ethereum will always process your transaction if you pay the right fee to do so. No one will stop it from any reason. So without going off too much on about this, you can read more about this in the newsletter today. I would say that freedom is the single best word to describe Ethereum in general. And that doesn't just apply to DeFi. It applies to everything else you can do on Ethereum. And you can do anything you want. And you can build anything you want. I mean, you could build any kind of like set of infrastructure you want as well. Like you can essentially fork a layer 2's source code and build your own instance of that layer 2 if you wanted to. You could do this with like any of the layer 2's that are open source. I don't think many of them are, but once they are, you can do this. And you can have people transacting on there and whatever you want to do and stuff like that. And you can be secured by Ethereum. So from that perspective, Ethereum is truly freeing for everyone, not just builders, not just users, but literally anyone in the world who can get value out of the network. But I'll leave it at that for now. I hope that was informative for you guys, and I hope you guys are enjoying the dark mode here. I've got a new light to illuminate my face. I used to use like the white of Twitter to illuminate my face, but then I've got a separate light. You guys get to enjoy the dark mode, and all is well there. But anyway, I think that's it for today. Thank you again, everyone, for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the newsletter. Join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.